Hello, and welcome to the Improvement Nerds podcast, where we host conversations about the things that nerd us out. The idea behind the Improvement Nerds podcast is to invite guests onto our show and give them a platform to talk about the things that make them nerdy. And as they share their ideas, we want to explore the important question of how does that idea intersect with improvement? We're curious about multiple types of improvement. Improvement of self, improvements made by teams, improvements made by organizations and communities of people. We even want to know improvement that's occurring at a larger scale, possibly with a societal impact. During each episode, we, along with our guests, will explore the topics that person's passionate about. The things that, when they're doing them, make time pass without any effort. The things that seem more like play than they do work. The things that are possibly that person's true calling. As we explore the topics that make us and that guest nerdy, we'll explore the why behind that passion and understand the purpose that idea is bringing to that person's life. We'll allow that person to teach us a little bit and share with us more information about that topic so that we can explore the idea for ourselves. Then, we'll look at how that passion intersects with improvement. In other words, we want to know how that idea makes us better people, better friends, better employees, better leaders, better insert whatever role might fit. We're excited to have you join us on this journey as we and our guests nerd out. All right, let's get started with episode 1, where Travis and I do our shakeout, just talking about the big picture here and why we wanted to start the podcast. We squeezed it in, the two of us, our families were together, so as you listen in on this episode, you're going to hear our little ones. Between the two of us, we have 5 kids, 5 boys actually under the age of 7, so you're going to hear those guys piping in, and I apologize in advance, but we look forward to you guys listening in, and we hope you enjoy it.
All right, Mr. West, this is the first episode of what, Improvement Nerds?
Improvement Nerds. Excited to have this conversation, Trav.
Yeah, so I know you and I talked about this several weeks ago, and it was on LinkedIn that I noticed that you changed your headline from like Master Black Belt to Improvement Nerd. So why did you decide to change your headline from Master Black Belt to Improvement Nerd?
Oh, it's a great question. What kind of motivated me was just that response people get when they see the title Master Black Belt or Project Manager. They are pretty cold and sterile. Most people don't understand what they're about, and I felt the best way to kind of communicate what my passion was and what my purpose was to just be a self-proclaimed improvement nerd. And all those credentials, all those certifications that I've achieved in my career were all meant with developing others and giving them the knowledge that I benefited from gaining as I studied to take these exams and prepare to perform at that level. And I thought that, the way to make that approachable was just to admit that I was a nerd and I was a person.
Just kind of own it, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You owned it, right?
Yes.
You know, and I don't know why I'm asking you that question. I'm the same.
It did. It got a lot of response.
It did. I mean, that's what you said. It's just like, you were trying to build this LinkedIn kind of following, and then you said, hey, Lozier, after I changed my name to Improvement Nerd, my following kind of skyrocketed,
yes.
right?
Yeah, not that many people want to follow a Master Black Belt.
No.
Yeah. Afraid I was going to talk about statistics or regression analysis. I'd rather talk about culture and empowerment and things like that.
Right. It's funny you say that. The only time I get any kind of response from an audience is that if it's been at Olivia's, Ryder's, or Nash's like kindergarten, like bring your dad to work day and tell them what you do, and then I say I'm a Master Black Belt, and they think that like you're into karate.
Yeah.
That's the only time I say I'm a Master Black Belt. Yeah. Let's just face it. The other times it's like, okay, I'm gonna stay away from that part.
Yeah. So I'm right there with you. It does when you're talking to kids, like they think it's super cool, but when we studied to become Master Black Belts, and as soon as I achieved it, I changed my status to it, not just on LinkedIn, but Facebook. And my grandmother called Carolyn and was talking to her, and she's like, where's Tom finding all this time to train for and practice karate to become a Master Black Belt? So basically if your grandmother doesn't know what you do, no one knows what you do. If you can explain it to someone of that age and generation and keep it simple for them, like, then, you've got it pretty honed in.
You've got that figured out. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love the name, by the way, Improvement Nerds Podcast. I think it's like the best thing ever. And I noticed that you've done a lot of work on the Green Dot website. So maybe talk a little bit about the bigger vision for what you see with this podcast of Improvement Nerds. And I have a feeling that it's more than the improvement sciences, right?
Yes.
So tell me more.
So self-awareness here. I know I'm monotone, and I could not imagine creating a series of podcasts where it was just me talking. And
unless you wanted people to like fall asleep.
Yes,
right away.
yes. Stay tuned to my other podcast. Tom West lulls you to sleep.
Ambient noises.
Yes, yeah. So I definitely had the idea of having it as a conversation with others and learning what their passions and the things that make them nerdy were, and allow them to tell their stories and to teach through the conversation what it is that they nerd out about, and to have that platform to talk about the essence of whatever it is that they lose track of time when they're doing it. So there's activities, anyone listening to this knows it. It's something you do, and when you're doing it, time just seems to pass as if it was non-existent. You're just plugged in, having fun, you're enjoying what you're doing, and as a result of that, you're in that dream world in some cases. So I wanted to have conversations with people about what makes them nerdy, what makes them lose track of time, what's the things that when they're doing it they feel like they're in that childlike state where everything's play. Mm-hmm. So kind of that's at least the idea behind the conversations. Now, these conversations I want to learn about their passions, and curious to see as they start to talk about these topics how they're applying them in the multiple roles that they play. And I think it'll be interesting to see how these ideas play out in people's work and in their families and in the communities that they belong to. And when people are interacting and trying to be themselves in those environments, sometimes you want to play a personality or a character and not really be yourself. And I think that's a challenge in life, to kind of allow yourself to be who you really are. And I think when you're doing these nerdy things, you're most close to your authentic self. And I think when you're present in that and you're doing what you love doing, you can really impact change and influence great things to happen in our world and our society. And to me, that's kind of the bigger overarching thing of improvement is, leave the campsite better than you found it idea of do something impactful and help bring about important change through the work that you do or the conversations that you have. And I'm excited to learn how people are doing that, and the things that hopefully I can learn from, and others, the audience can learn from, and they themselves can start doing too. Yeah,
I think that's beautifully said, Tom. I think that anyone that knows you, the things that I've learned from you in the past, one of the first things I've learned was, you cannot separate your authentic self from your professional self. And that was just like this kind of myth that you could kind of lead this kind of bifurcated life, that I'm one person when I come to work, and then I'm another person when I go home. And you were the one, you were the first person that really drove that home for me personally, that, that's artificial. You're like one person, and to think that you live these two separate lives is just like this false prophecy, right? And I think that you've taught tons of people to believe in that, and just to not necessarily believe in it. I think people have always believed in it. It's just like accept it. It's just like, you know what? I'm who I am, right? And I'm just going to live that. And I think that you've empowered people through the improvement sciences, through Lean, through Six Sigma, through design thinking, through project management, through all of these what's considered technical kind of industries and professions, that you found a way to just kind of like say, these technical skills are great, But if you really want to make them really good, you bring your technical skills and who you are together, and then magic happens.
Yeah.
And that's where I've seen you empower hundreds, if not thousands of people over your career to make that happen. And just the idea of you starting this podcast and reaching potentially millions of people, that's pretty dang cool.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize the impact that I had. I think you just say certain things that you believe in, and when you're saying them, you're oftentimes just saying them for yourself. One, to convince you that yourself that's possible. And the more you tell it to yourself, the more you believe in it. So a lot of the times in those conversations, really, I was just trying to convince myself that was true. And the quote that I always shared with you was from Rich Roll's book, that wherever I go, myself always follows. And he talked about his life and his way he was programmed was always the way he viewed the world, whether he was competing in sports or podcasting or doing something professionally. Like, the way he was programmed impacted however he was acting in that situation. And I had this that's how you live life, is as one person, not several fragments of a different person who acts this way in this situation and another way in another situation. That's just impossible to keep up.
Yeah.
So, after reading his book and after coming into the professional world, I made a commitment to just be me and enjoy that and to put it out there. And if that made other people uncomfortable, that was probably a good thing, because they were probably uncomfortable because what I said was true. Like, maybe they were someone who was trying to be multiple different people and they were living their lives in different compartments, and maybe the words that I said kind of forced them to push all those things together to allow themselves to be that one whole person again.
Yeah. So I think the Green Dot Improvement Nerd podcast has tons of potential. So here's what I think is going to happen. You're going to have a lot of great guests.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that you're going to talk about the improvement sciences. I bet you talk about psychological safety. I bet you talk about being your authentic self. And I think that people will be able to connect with you, Tom, in ways that are really meaningful around how do you be kind of a professional, and then also how do you role model your authentic self. Yeah. So I think if you can do that, this podcast, I know I'm going to listen. And maybe I secured myself like a deal of like coming on every other episode or something and just like making a cameo. What do you think?
I will let the audience kind of determine how much Travis Lozier they can take. Now, when you put it out there like that, though, the response from the audience is going to be like, every episode, just interview Travis. We love him. Right. But we're going to try to get some other bright minds in this as well. So.
I have a feeling if there was like a thumbs down on like LinkedIn or Facebook, they'd be like, get that guy off of there. So, Tom, I think this was a great episode. I think this has got a lot of great potential, and I think that I think this could have a huge following because you're an easy person to love, dude. And I think you just keep being who you are. You keep, talking about what you believe in, and I think a lot of people will follow it. So thanks for letting me get this kicked off for you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for providing the energy to get us started. And somewhere along this journey, you'll be in the seat as I interview you, and I can't wait to learn what nerds Travis Lozier out.
All right, Tom. Well, this was a successful episode 1. Until next time.